Amud Beis, Rabbi Shmuel Omer. That's 5 lines down. We're going to the next piece of the Mishnah, where there was another opinion of another type of oil that you're not allowed to use for Shabbos candles. So this oil does burn nicely, and therefore does not fit into the category of previous Mishnah of oils that you're not allowed to light with because you might come to tip, in order that they should be drawn to the wick. This does not apply to that. So therefore the question, that's why Tanakam holds they are allowed to light with this itron, with this liquid coming out of tar, and Rabbi Shmuel says you're not allowed to. My timer, why are you not allowed to? Omar Rava or Rabba, mitoich sherei chayra. Since it has a bad smell, gzeira shema yanichena v'yetze. Chachamim made a gzeira, do not use it because you might not stand the smell and leave. So obviously, it's not a hiddur mitzvah if it doesn't smell nicely, but that wouldn't be a good enough reason for Chachamim to say that you're not yotze, that you're not allowed to use it. Don't use it, it's not preferable, but you're allowed to. But since it smells so bad, you might leave it. That's a reason for Chazal to say you're not allowed to use it, and if you used it, it's not valid. Why? Amar Abaye told Abaye to his Rebbe Rabba, V'yetze, let him leave. He did the mitzvah, he lit the candles. So what if he leaves? I mean, obviously, it's not nice, it's not mehuder, but to say that he shouldn't be yetze the mitzvah because he's going to leave, what's the big deal? Amar Le answered back, Rabbi, Shani Omer, I hold, Hadlokas Ner b'Shabbos Choyva. Lighting Shabbos candles is a must. Now, truth is, we'll see later on, there's a Mishnah which says that lighting Shabbos candles is a must. Rabbi doesn't have to say it as his own opinion, as a big chiddush. I hold that lighting Shabbos candles is a must. And also, what's the connection? What's the connection between leaving and the fact that Shabbos candles is a must? So Tosfos explains that what he means to say is, he holds that lighting Shabbos candles and it should be lit by the place of your meal, that's a must. It says there's 2 reasons for Shabbos candles. One reason for Shabbos candles is that you should have a light in your house and you wouldn't stumble, as they didn't have electricity those days. So on Shabbos night, you must have light. You should be able to walk around freely. Another reason is that to eat, especially if it was dark, but even today, there's more pleasure when you eat a meal and there's light. It's a more enjoyable, pleasurable meal. If you light Shabbos candles in one room and you go to eat your meal in another room, so from the Mishnah we don't see that there's a big issue over here. Rabbi says there's a big issue. The main place to light Shabbos candles is by your meal in order for you to have Oyneg Shabbos. And that's why today, although we have electricity, so therefore the mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles that they should be lighted in every single room does not apply. You have to just make sure that there's a light bulb lit in a way that you can open the door and have light in every single room. But by the table, that's where we light candles and we make a bracha, because the main mitzvah of lighting Shabbos candles is by the meal, by the table, by the place that you eat. And therefore, since over here he might leave and not eat the suda by the light of the candles, that's a big issue, to the extent that according to Rabbi Yishmael, Chacham made a gzeira that type of oil is invalid, you're not yet to the mitzvah. Fine. What's my source that lighting Shabbos candles by the table is a chayva? The Amar of Nachum bar Rav Zavda, the Amri lo Amar of Nachum bar Rav Amar Rav. He said in the name of Rav, Hadlokas ner Shabbos chayva. To light Shabbos candles, that's a must again. It's a must to light it by the table, for the meal. Rechitzas yadayim v'raglayim b'chamim arvis. To wash your hands and your feet. In those days, they would go barefoot. That was a normal thing to go barefoot, and therefore the feet had to be washed. There's more mechubadik that it should be washed. So to wash your hands and your feet b'chamim with hot water, arvis, just before night on Erev Shabbos, rishus. That's already optional. That's already something which it's a nice thing to do, but it's not a must. That's what Ram said. V'ani Omer said this Rav Nachman, whichever one it was, the son of Rav Zavda or the son of Rava, mitzvah. There's like 3 steps in things that are you're supposed to do. Rishus, mitzvah, and chayva. Chayva means it's a must. Rishus means it's a nice thing, but it's optional. And mitzvah means it's still optional, but it's not just a nice thing. It's like a right thing to do, more than just a nice thing to do. So washing your hands and feet with hot water on Erev Shabbos is not just a nice thing to do, but it's a right thing to do. It's a mitzvah. It's not a chayva like lighting Shabbos candles by the table when you're going to eat, but it's still a mitzvah. Okay. Says the Gemara, my mitzvah. What is the mitzvah? So I didn't yet find someone to try to explain exactly what the question and answer is, but it seems to be that if we're comparing it to lighting Shabbos candles, it must be something which is like giving extra kavod for Shabbos. So yes, if your hands and feet are dirty, you shouldn't wash them before Shabbos, but it seems like it's more of like an extra kavod for Shabbos. So we want to ask, how do we wash your hands and feet for Shabbos and express through that a very special kavod for Shabbos? So he's going to describe what one of the Tanoim did, how he behaved, how he did this practice of washing his hands and feet, that we'll see from that how it's giving an extra kavod to Shabbos. My mitzvah, what is the mitzvah?
Isn't kavod though midrabanan?
Midri Nevim, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Why is it not a chayva, you're asking? So some things, kavod is translated what it means. Ksus nikiya. You should have so some things are a chayv, but some things could add to kavod, but they're not a chayv. You could give more kavod to some. Kavod your father and your mother. Yeah, so the things that you could give more kavod to them with, you don't have to do it, but if you do it, it's part of the mitzvah. So here also, you don't have to do this step, but if you do it, you're adding very much to the mitzvah of kavod of Shabbos. So how did he do it? Rabbi Yehuda, who was the son of Rabbi Eloi, this was his minhag. Erev Shabbos, mevimle, they would bring to him areva, a pail, meleya chamin, full with hot water. V'reichetz panov yodav v'rankel, he wash his face, his hands, and his feet. And straight after that, misate v'yeshev v'zdinim hamtzuyotzim. He would right away wrap himself around with white sheets without tzitzis. So he would get dressed especially in white. That's like a kavod Shabbos. It says that was like big tzaddikim used to dress themselves in white. In the past, it was more common. That's like a very big kavod for Shabbos. So that he would have sheets. Sheets were made out of linen, as we call them today, linen. They're not necessarily made out of linen today, but they're still called linen. And it was with four corners, and he had tzitzis on it, including the tcheles, which is made out of wool, which is basically shatnes, but tzitzis, if you have shatnes for tzitzis, is fine. Not just fine, that's if you have a four-cornered linen clothing, mi'ikar hadin, mina Torah, you should have tcheles, so that's exactly what he did. The doimel lemalach Hashem tzvois. He looked like a malach, with white, covered in white. So this just expresses to us how much this process of washing was adding to kavod of Shabbos. You washed and right away you dressed in white, and you right away got ready to greet the Shabbos. It was really a very great expression of very great expression of respect for Shabbos. Now, to continue the story, they also took white sheets, but they hid the corners. They were his Talmidim, but they had their own mind of their own as well. And they held differently than him. They held that sheets made out of linen, you should not put tcheles on it. Yeah? Amar lahen, he told them, Bonai, my children, Talmidim are called children. Loi kach shanisi lechem, didn't I teach you? Sodin b'tzitzis, a linen sheet that you have to put on tzitzis. V'shamai poitrim, they say you should not, because they hold they're not allowed to have shatnis and tzitzis. Ubesilal mechayim, Besilal say you have to put on tzitzis with tcheles. Tcheles we're talking about. That's the main thing. The question is, you put the tcheles on, because tcheles has to be wool. The Torah says, Besil b'shatnis, gedilim tasalecha. Don't put on shatnis, but put on tzitzis. So Besilal say the fact that they're right next to each other tells me that don't put on shatnis, but you can make shatnis for tzitzis. And Mishari says, no, what's the connection? So what if it's one next to the other? It makes no difference. And therefore, you're not allowed to have shatnis for tzitzis. So we hold like Besilal. So why don't you put on tzitzis? Or do you guys hold like Bishamai? So they didn't answer, obviously, it's their Rebbe, that they respected him. But Ve'inu Sabri, they held Gzeiro Mishum Ksus Laila. We're afraid that you might have and wear this sheet by night. Sheets are meant for the night. And a clothing which is meant for the night, and you wearing it by night, all opinions hold. There's a machlokes who show them how to understand this idea, whether if it's designated for the night, or whether it's you're wearing it by night. But if you're doing both for sure, it's not chayiv b'tzitzis. If it's not chayiv b'tzitzis, you're not allowed to have tchelis. And then you're being over on the Isra of Shatnez. So they held, although it's a mitzvah deiraisa to put on tzitzis, tchelis. Now the real mitzvah deiraisa is when you're actually wearing a four-cornered clothing, right then you have the mitzvah, put on tzitzis. It's not a mitzvah that you're not allowed to wear clothing without tzitzis. When you put on a four-cornered clothing, you have to then go and put on tzitzis. And that's why in Shabbos it's not as strict. There's much more leniencies in tzitzis on Shabbos, if you have possible tzitzis, because you can't tie on, so you don't really have the mitzvah to tie on tzitzis. So they said like this: to not put on tchelas is a sheiv v'al taseh. I'm not doing a mitzvah deiraisa, but I'm not actively doing something against the deiraisa. I'm just not doing the deiraisa. If I'm going to wear it by night, I'm actively being goyver and aloisasa. So we chachamim are making a gzeira, and we have the power to do that. That you should not put on tchelas on linen sheets, because you might wear it by night, and then you're actively doing an avir. And that's taka the halacha. The halacha is like the Talmidim of Rabbi Yehuda, that midrabanan on sheets made out of linen, you do not put on tchelas. Okay, it's not so practical today, but you would not put on tchelas because you do not want them to have shatnez by night. Fine? So, we just saw this scripture which is showing us how much respect is expressed for Shabbos, and by the way, we got into the machlokes about putting on tchelas on linen sheets between Rabbi Yehuda and his Talmud. And this was all we wanted to explain why you're not allowed to have a bad smelling oil for a Shabbos candle, because you might leave it, because it's a chiyuv to have the Shabbos candle by your table by the meal. And another thing which you could do for Shabbos, but isn't such a chiyuv, is washing your hands and feet, and straight afterwards you get dressed nicely for Shabbos. Now, since we mentioned lighting Shabbos candles, we're going to bring a pasuk which refers to that. This is in Eicha. In Eicha, when Yomi was describing his own tzaris, when they were torturing him for the fact that he was saying bad nevuos about the Beis Hamikdash. So it says, "Vatiznach mishalem nafshi." My neshama had been left alone from peace, did not have peace. Nashisi toiva, I forgot what goodness is. My vatiznach mishalem nafshi. What does it mean? My neshama was left out, was lacking peace. Amar Rabbi Aboz u'adlokas ner b'Shabbos. He was stuck in the dungeon. He did not have any candles to light for Shabbos, and that was what bothered him. He has a dark Shabbos, and that's a big tsar. Nashisi toiva, he forgot goodness. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah zubi samerchetz. He couldn't go to the bathhouse before Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Yechanan zurichit sedayim raglayim b'chamin. He couldn't wash his hands and feet without water for Shabbos. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar zumita k'noa v'kelim noim. He didn't have a nice bed, which bed in those days was a recliner for the meal, whatever you call that, haseba bed they used to have. Yeah. So he didn't have a set bed and nice dishes, sholel, nice sheets or pillows on it. And Rabbi Abba Omar Zumita Mutzas Visha Mukushetas Talmidei Chachamim, to have a bed that's set and a wife that's dressed nicely by a Talmid Chacham, which knows how to treat it with true respect, with pure attitude. For Shabbos, that's something which is considered having goodness, and the fact that he was lacking that. And the fact that he was lacking that That's what he was complaining about. Now the truth is that what I was saying over here is, one second. Okay, whatever. Either we're talking about Yirmiyah's personal troubles when he was in the dungeon, or we're talking about what happened after the Churban, and they were wandering from place to place and they weren't settled for Shabbos, and they were lacking these basic good things which Shabbos is supposed to give you. So we just saw from this pasuk, from the explanations on the pasuk, that lighting Shabbos candles by the table and washing your hands and feet are from the good things of Shabbos, and that's why he's complaining that he was lacking them. Now that we spoke about what's called having something good, which you want to have for Shabbos, and Yirmiyah Yirmiyah Novi was lacking that. So we're going to talk about other things which are good to have, similar to these things. Tanu Rabbanan Eize Oshir. Who's a rich man? So the first opinion is Kol sheyesh le nachas ruach ba'oshri. Whoever has pleasure with whatever possessions he have, basically, in other words, hasameach b'chalkoi, that's considered a rich man. Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir had, that's exactly what he had. He had a very limited amount of funds. He had like one coin that he was able to buy some food, and one coin that he was able to buy some clothes, and then another coin was extra, so he gave it to Talmidei Chachamim for tzedakah. He really didn't have anything with him, for him. So he was saying, I live this and I practice this, and I'm telling you, who's rich? Whoever appreciates whatever he has. There's going to be four opinions of here. So that's what the simon over here is. Mem, Tes, Kuf, Samach, that's Meir, Tarfin, Akiva, and Yosi. The four opinions of who's rich. Reb Tarfin Oimer, Kol sheyesh le meya kramim, whoever has 100 vineyards, Umeya Sodis, and 100 fields, Umeya Avodim, and 100 servants, Sha'ivdim Mehen, which are working in them, I guess, in each one of them, or in total, but he has 100 servants to take care of them properly, and therefore they'll produce whatever they're supposed to produce. So the simple explanation of this is, that's exactly what he had. He was a rich man, and he exactly had this amount of fields and servants. He said, oh, I'm rich because I have whatever I need. In other words, the amount that I have, that's exactly what I need, no more. Or some say the opposite. He's trying to tell you that if you're going to be someone who's looking for more and more riches, you're never going to end. You're going to wait. You're only going to be rich when you're going to have 100 vineyards, 100 fields, 100 servants, which is not going to happen. And therefore, you're never going to feel rich as much as you have. So stop there. Don't try to be rich. Don't work on being rich, because until you get an enormous amount, you're always going to want an enormous amount, and it's not worth the heartache. Rabbi Yosi, whoever has a bisakisi near his table, which in those days was a rarity, especially in Babel, they would have it outside of the city. So basically, to be able to go to the toilet when you need to is a basic of health. Otherwise, if you hold it in, that starts lots of issues. And therefore, you're basically telling you, if you're healthy with basic health, then you're rich. If you have a lot of riches and you're not guarding your health, it's not worth it. And if you guard your health and you don't have riches, you're still rich. You have what you need. You're healthy.
Sorry, did you miss out Kol sheyesh lo isha? No,
You're right. I'm sorry, I skipped. Rabbi Kiva Omer Kol sheyesh lo isha no b'maisim. Whoever has a wife which is nice, beautiful in her actions, which is what Rabbi Kiva had. He had his wife, the daughter of Kalba Savua, which gave up everything in order that he should learn Torah, and worked for 24 years on her own in order that she should learn Torah. So she was definitely beautiful in her behavior. So that's what you need. When you have that, you're rich. So this follows the line that is saying that everyone was saying that whatever they have, it's good enough. They're basically expressing how they're happy with their lot. What they have, that's what you need. You don't need anything more. And Rabbi Yosi said that if you have, so there's a story in Gemara that there was once a guy that saw Rabbi Yosi and he said, you look like you make a lot of good money. You must be someone who's malva beribis, who lends people on for interest, which was an easy way to get money. You look so healthy. He said, no. I just have a bisakiza near my table, and therefore I keep my health, and that's it. I look like I'm a rich man. I don't need anything else. So it sounds like the simple explanation is they were all expressing that whatever they had, they're happy with. Fine. Okay. Back to the Mishnah, the types of oils you should not use. So there's one type of oil which we did not mention, which that is Tani. We learned in a brayser of Shimon Elazar Eimer, a madlikim b'tzari. You cannot light with tsari, which is one of the ketores. It's a very good smelling oil. So you're not allowed to light with that. Now, why not? You're definitely going to stay there. It smells so good. So what's the problem? Since it has a very good smell, you might take some, smear some on you to smell it or whatever it is. You'll be taking it out of the candle, and once you have oil in a candle, taking it out is considered extinguishing the fire, because that oil is designated for that, and there is a problem you might use it. Amali Abaya tells him, Abaya, Leimomar Mipnei Shehu Off. Why did he say a more simple reason? It flies. It does not, once you light it, it does not stay in the candle. It could shoot, it could splash, and it's flammable. And again, what's the issue? So it sounds like it wasn't that flammable that would be a sakana for a regular person, as we'll see later on. That with petrol, you're not allowed to eat petrol for a candle because it could spread and it will burn your house, and that's a sakana. But this is not such a sakana, but it could ruin things. It could damage some things, and since you might be worried about it damaging your property, so you might put it out once you're done the meal. So you have a better reason why you shouldn't use that oil. That's what Tosfos explains. That just makes it a bit more, like the Hemshech was a bit more understanding. So he answered, you're right. That's a good reason. And there's another reason. One reason is because it could make a fire. And another reason is because you might use it. Okay, so if it would be really making a fire in a dangerous way, it would be not understood. Like, it's such a much stronger reason. So why are you saying such a far reason? But the truth is that no, it's a small chashash that you'll put it out because it could damage some things, and another chashash they might come and use it. So here we have a story, not such a pleasant story, to describe how this oil can spread and can light things on fire. Hahi Chamsa was a shviger. So she hated her daughter-in-law. Amrullah, she told her, Zil ikshad b'mishchad afarsima. I love you so much. Could you please smear yourself with afarsimoin oil? I want you to smell so pleasant. Which afarsimoin oil is this tsari. The same thing. Just that's the different name for it. She smeared it. When she came back, Amrullah, she told the Zilis lishraga. Could you please light the candle which was hanging from the ceiling? Azla, she went, Isla Shaga, she lit the candle, and in Pachna Nura, the fire caught onto her, Vachalt, and burnt her. So that shows how, I guess, if she smeared it all over herself, she's much more flammable, but it just shows you how this could spread and could cause that a fire should spread, and therefore, it's another reason not to use it on Shabbos. So, we learned the verse like this. Number one, Rabbi Shmuel says, do not use itran, the liquid that comes out of tar when you cook it. And the reason is because it smells bad and you leave your Shabbos table, and there's a chiyuv that the candle should be by your Shabbos table. And there's another thing you're supposed to do before Shabbos. It's not a chiyuv, but it's either a rishus or a mitzvah, and the halach is that it's a mitzvah to wash your hands and your feet with hot water. Rabbi Yehuda right after that would put on white sheets, and they would have tzitzis and tchelas. His talmidim didn't have tchelas on it because they held that they were afraid that you might have it by night, and then you're doing a loisas, rather skip the essay in order not to come to the loisas. Then we mentioned that certain things that you're supposed to have on Shabbos, Yirmiyah was lacking by the Churban or when he was imprisoned. So we're trying to say what they are. The Shalom is definitely lighting candles, but that makes Shalom bias. That makes that you shouldn't bump it to anything, and then obviously you'll blame your partner that it's her fault that that you bumped yourself. So in order to avoid that, you have to have Shabbos candles, but also when we said before that you should have by the table, you should see the food, you should see each other. That's considered shalom. What is toiva, goodness? Either going to the bathhouse before Shabbos, or at least washing your hands and feet with hot water before Shabbos, or having a nice bed or a nice recliner with nice sheets for Shabbos, or to have a nice bed with your wife dressed up in a way that you're doing it in a pure way. You're doing it with a pure focus, like a Talmud Chacham is meant to do. That's something which is toiva, and they were lacking that after the Churban. Now, who's a rich person? So either whatever you have, you're happy with. That's what our mayor says. Or if you have 100 fields, 100 vineyards, 100 servants, so either that's what he had, so he's happy with that. Or you're telling you that you'll never be happy, so just don't look for that. Rabbi Kiva says if you have a wife which has good ma'asim, which that was his wife. Rabbi Yossi says if you're healthy and you make sure not to hold yourself in, and you have that's what makes you rich. Then we spoke about not lighting with tsari, which has a good smell, because you might use it, and also because it could burn things and it could damage your property, and therefore you might put it out. And then we brought the story which proves how this could spread and catch things on fire.
Who is Mar? When the Gemara refers to Mar, who is
everywhere is different. Mar means my master. So in our case over here, Leima Mar, it's Rabbi. Rabbi was Abaye's Rebbe. So he says, may our master say, yeah?
Sure.
Okay. Colton.
Colton, thank you.